Hi, it's Chris Collinsworth coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, getting ready for a game. But I had to jump in on this conversation because I feel so strongly about Willie Anderson and the Hall of Fame. Now, understand, until PFF and some other companies like it came along and actually graded every single snap that somebody had, we didn't really know about offensive linemen. We knew a little bit. We knew Anthony Munoz was a great athlete. We knew Andrew Whitworth could really play. But we didn't know exact numbers. Now we know. Now we know.
All right, Steve Palazzolo of PFF here with Paul Alexander and Neil Hornsby. We're really talking Willie Anderson and his Hall of Fame candidacy. So I want to start with you, Paul. Why are we here? You're the one pushing this thing. Why are we pushing Willie for the Hall of Fame?
Well, I think Willie was certainly a great player. And unfortunately, at that time, the only way you knew about good players is if the team was good and they were on national TV and they got the pub and you got to see them. And unfortunately, most of Willie's career, we weren't very good, you know. And but the statistics that he put out and the performance he had certainly is worthy of greatness. And so we're trying to get the word out.
So we'll get into some of those numbers in a minute, but you managed to pull Neil out of retirement here. So what are you adding to the discussion here, Neil?
It's really interesting, Steve, because Paul called me, as he does from time to time, and says, can you just do me a favor? Can you just pull some stats on Willie, and would then you mind talking about those stats as to Willie, the end of Willie's career at PFF? And truthfully, I'm a little bit dubious. It's not that I know that Willie isn't a great player, but Hall of Fame's big boy stuff. So I'm thinking, yeah, pulling the stats from the end of the career. I want to be sure that I'm doing the right thing. At PFF, we want to give stats that are accurate, etc. So I start doing some digging. And I start watching film, and I get back to where we were, Steve. Yeah. You know, I'm doing the thing. I'm grading the games. I'm pulling it through. I'm doing all the stuff. And the more I'm watching, the more I'm goggle-eyed, and I'm realizing I can't just support this. I have to get completely behind the thing, because if there's one person that I've seen that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, it's Willie Anderson.
He was the most dominant run-blocking tackle in football. I can say that categorically without any question. We broke several NFL records running behind him. 5 of the best rushing seasons in Bengals history were running behind him. All right, and but what's funny is now with all of his sack numbers that have come out, which are crazy, he's kind of known as he was a great pass blocker. You know, well, it kind of talks what he was. He was first a dominant run blocker who had unbelievable pass protection numbers.
16 sacks in 13 seasons, Neil.
Well, I mean, that's a fantastic number, but I have to be clear, Steve, we only have I've been through the last few of those with Willie and even talked to him and agreed them. But Paul is the man that we need to talk to. Paul, where do those stats come from?
I was Willie's coach for virtually his whole career, and I'm the one who graded him, and I stand behind that. And more than that, we went through all the video of every game just to make sure, because it sounds like an absurd number. We went through and charted them, and that's what it is. 16 sacks in 13 years.
It's an unbelievable number. Just to put that into some form of context as to where that stands. To do a statistical analysis of sacks allowed per game, we need to look at how Willie compares to the top 5 pass protectors of the last 15 years. The best of those is Joe Thomas. The best is Joe Thomas. And he is looking at about 0.18 sacks a game. That number from Willie is 0.08 a game. It's more than twice as good. It's an utterly remarkable stat. And just watching some of the tape of Willie, you can see why.
It didn't matter who we were playing against. You know, he played against, I think, 9 of the top pass rushers in NFL history and gave up 1 sack. The list is unbelievable, the guys that he shut down. So we never really did help him. We didn't chip. We said, Willie, that's your guy. And he blocked him. And it was very comforting to be able to slide the line to the left all the time and know that we had Willie over there on the right.
At PFF, we don't have statistics for the entire career of every player. I wish we had a grade for every snap, but we don't. What we do have is grades for all of the Hall of Fame players here for the end of their career. And what we find is that Willie Anderson is slightly behind Jonathan Ogden, on a par with Walter Jones and Steve Hutchinson, and ahead of Will Shields, Alan Faneca, Kevin Mawai and Orlando Pace. So in summary, he stacks up incredibly well alongside all of the current Hall of Famers that we have information for.
Right tackles that people had said, oh, he's too slow to play left tackle, or like all these, the scouting jargon that's used against a right tackle. I'm like, you want to throw the slow guy over there where Von Miller is and where J.J. Watt is? This was, 10 years ago, and those guys were coming into the league. So I did a little research on it too and said, okay, is it actually more difficult to play left tackle versus right tackle? And is it more detrimental for the team to have a hole at left tackle or right tackle? And there was actually no difference in everything that I saw. So, my conclusion was pretty clear. I think left tackles and right tackles are just equally important, and I'm curious if that's something that you saw through the years.
Yeah, I think that's why we kept Willie at right tackle.
Yeah.
Right tackle used to be, years ago, when you played football, you put your best tackle at right tackle because you'd run to the right, you're a right-handed team, and when you passed, you typically, to keep the quarterback's eyes on the front side of the protection, you would slide your line to the left, right? So you had 3-on-2 to the left, but man-on-man on the right. That was years ago. And then all of a sudden there became this building myth that the left tackle is the premier guy. And I guess, blame me.
The stats bear it out because when pressure comes from left tackle versus right tackle, the results are just as disastrous for the quarterback. Strip sacks are not bigger from the blind side. They're just as bad from right tackle. Passer rating is the same. Yards per attempt are the same. Pressure from right tackle is just as detrimental to the offense as pressure from left tackle. So it's time to think of left tackle and right tackle in the same league, just as difficult, one to the other.
A right tackle's role is equally as valuable and difficult as a left tackle. Yet, for some reason, during Willie's career, there was a bias towards left tackles. The number of Pro Bowl edge rushers, right and left, were pretty much equally split. However, when we look at the tackles, only 14 Pro Bowl selections out of 99 were made for right tackle players. Additionally, when we look at the first season that each of those players made the Pro Bowl, there is a view that players could only make the Pro Bowl if they were playing on good teams. And looking at everybody other than Willie's, those statistics would be borne out. The average number of wins for right tackle, first-time Pro Bowlers, 12.3 wins for their team. Willie remarkably made the Pro Bowl for the first time on an 8-8 team. That is clearly overcoming the bias against right tackles, and it's also overcoming the bias of having to play on a good team. Willie made the Pro Bowl despite everything that was against him.
Willie Anderson is a drop the mic, no-brainer, Hall of Famer. Go through the numbers, examine them with a fine-tooth comb, and you're going to agree with me, the biggest injustice is that he's not in already.